What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? After Tuesday's spring training game, are we going to see some Geraldo Perdomo power this upcoming season? And who's in the lead to be the Dbacks closer?
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist, and I'm a graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. If you want to see more content by me, please follow me on Twitter at CareerThomas24 for the personal account, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we're going to be discussing Tuesday's spring training game. We saw some Geraldo Perdomo power. What does that mean for the upcoming season? So our first look at our potential closers, breaking down that spring training battle. Now I want to discuss what if second half Dbacks from last year, 2024 Dbacks, the second half, what if they continue into 2025? That's what we're going to discuss on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms. So please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Now let's discuss Tuesday's game for the D-backs, because I don't really care too much about like the results, what the exact score was. Like there's more like little things that we're watching throughout the games, right? It's more about the spring training battles, the closer, the backup catcher, the back in the rotation, watching the youngsters who are fighting to make the opening day or active roster, right? Watching the guys who might have been hurt last year, see how they're coming back, like the Kyle Nelsons of the world. So for spring training, I don't really care about like the black and white results. Did the D-backs win? There is more little minutia things to care about than D-backs losing 4-2 to the Cubs, because one thing that stood out from today's game that a lot of people were talking about was that Geraldo Perdomo home run, because we know Jerry just got a massive extension by the D-backs to be maybe the shortstop of the future, or just be on the left side of the infield for the future. But regardless, D-backs with that contract extension shows their commitment to Jerry and how much they believe in him as a player. And Jerry has been a guy since coming in to the D-backs in 2022. That was his first full season. Has been one of the greatest, or one of the best development stories in baseball over the last few years. Average has gone up. OPS has gone up. He's just become a more well-rounded player season after season. And it looks like as he enters 2025, he is continuing to try and improve his offensive game, more specifically the power department, because on Tuesday, Jerry hit his first home run in spring training. And we know power is not something Perdomo is really known for. He's a career .330 slugging with only 14 home runs and 1,206 at-bats. No one is going to mistake Perdomo for being a power guy. If he was, he probably wouldn't be batting ninth. And we're all fine with Perdomo batting ninth. But if he was a 20 home run guy, I promise you, he would not be the number 9 hitter for the D-backs. And when you watch his home run on Tuesday, you would notice there was something very, very small in the details that was slightly different than what he did last season. And he actually did some of this even last season. He talked about there was a little leg kick that you saw in his home run, and he incorporated that leg kick last year. He started using it, but it's not something that he does every time. It's more of a feel thing. Whether if it's like he's rolling and the leg kick has been working for him, he'll continue to do it. He also acknowledges that the leg kick allows him to tap into more power. So if there's like, maybe there's a count where he feel like there could be a fastball coming that he's waiting for. Maybe there's a situation in the game where it's like, you know what? My team could really use a home run now. Let me pull out the leg kick. It's not something that he's going to do after every, or it's not something he's going to do during every at bat, but it is something he's going to pull out as like a special weapon when he wants to tap into a little bit more power. He does that leg kick. He mostly uses it for control, body, contortion, all of that. But for the most part, bottom line, it's just good to see Perdomo continuing to improve, continuing to look at ways to improve his offensive game and actually seeing the results. He says he's used that leg kick when he does the winter ball, and seeing the results actually pay off in spring training has meant a lot to him. And so come the regular season, if he can start incorporating that leg kick and it adds a little bit more power to Perdomo's arsenal, then it's like Perdomo goes from being like a good shortstop for the D-backs to being like an all-star caliber shortstop. And yes, he already has an all-star on his resume, but I'm talking about like viewed as an all-star caliber shortstop. Right now, he's viewed as a glue guy, really good player, but to be viewed in that like upper class of shortstops, he needs to incorporate a little bit more power, because I do think there's a world where you could look at next season and Perdomo becomes like a 12 to 15 home run guy. Can Perdomo be like the 5th or 6th best shortstop in the National League? I definitely think it's possible. He's the guy that has improved his contact ability at the plate year after year. Look at his average. It has gone in the right direction every single season. His plate discipline, of course, elite. Career low strikeout rate last season. And yes, his walk rate was also a career low, but when you have a career low strikeout rate at only like 15% last year, like Perdomo is a guy who is not striking out. And even with his walk rate a little bit lower last year, it was still one of the best on the team and still one of the better ones in the National League. This is still a guy who is incredible when it comes to plate discipline. I mean, 14.9% strikeout rate last year is absolutely insane. And the fact that his defense continues to improve, the defensive metrics on Fangraphs really liked what Perdomo did last year. So offensively, defensively, he continues to improve. And now if he adds power to the mix, why can't he be the best shortstop after Francisco Lindor, Ella De La Cruz, Willie Adames, Trey Turner? I'll give you tier 1, top 4, lock it in. But after that, can Perdomo be the 5th best shortstop in the National League? It's guys like Ezekiel Tovar. It's guys like Dansby Swanson, Orlando Arcia. Yes, those guys might have a little bit of a more proven track record than Perdomo, but Perdomo is a guy who is continuing to get better year after year, a guy who already has an all-star on his resume, and the D-backs are giving him money, which shows you their commitment and tells you they believe this guy is only going to continue to get better. So for Perdomo, if he truly adds a little bit of power to his arsenal this upcoming season, we know we've talked about the other D-backs players and the Carrolls and the Eugenio's and how they continue their second halves, how much is going to help his D-backs team offensively. But for a guy like Perdomo, who's your number 9 hitter, who we know sets the table for this D-backs team as the bottom of the order guy, that guy all of a sudden also adds power as the table setter, number 9 hitter. That is a game changer for this D-backs lineup. Now we'll discuss how the D-backs closers look and who's in the lead to be the closer for 2025 in segment number 3. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. My favorite Wonderful Pistachios I actually have right here. Sorry to the audio listeners only. You're going to have to go to YouTube for this one, because right next to me, I got 3 of my favorite flavors here. And this is what is great about Wonderful Pistachios. Unsalted right here, no shell. Chili roasted, no shell. And then this one is roasted and salted with the shell. The great thing about Wonderful Pistachios is the variety. You could get salted, unsalted, with shell, no shell. Get a little kick to it if you wanted to. No matter what flavor you want, they have a variety and a profile that fits just for you. So please go get yourself some Wonderful Pistachios. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, let's discuss the closer role for Arizona because in Tuesday's spring training game, we got to see all the D-backs closers go out there and make their spring training debut, and all of them look fantastic, and it just toughens who should win the D-backs closer role, even though all D-backs fans already have their answer. And I believe Torey Lovullo, Mike Hazen already know as well who they want to be the D-backs closer, but they're going to go through spring training and put everyone through the trials and make someone earn it, which I totally respect because as we've been talking about on this podcast, the D-backs philosophy going forward, winning over development. And even though all D-backs fans want Justin Martinez to be the closer, and I think he will be named the closer, I think he's the best option, D-backs continue to tell you, if Justin Martinez, despite him being young and him being groomed to be the closer of the future, if we do not believe he is the absolute best option right now, we will go with someone else, which I totally respect. But at the end of the day, I think this is just a lot of charades by the D-backs, and I think Justin Martinez ultimately will be named the closer for the D-backs. But regardless, it's still a fun competition that we can talk about because as we saw today, the D-backs bullpen looked really, really good. And it wasn't even just the Ginkle, Puck, Martinez, the three-man combination fighting for the closer role. We also saw our opener lefty specialist, Joe Mantiply, go out there, right? Guy who started in a World Series game, a guy who started in some big postseason matchups for the D-backs as an opener. Joe Mantiply, an all-star for Arizona. Like, this is a guy who's, when his career is done, is going to get like a D-backs plaque. It might be in the D-backs like Ring of Honor. Like, if he goes to the 2023 World Series with the D-backs and then they have like another phenomenal run, maybe they win it all, and Joe Mantiply is also on that roster, like, we need to talk about Joe Mantiply as one of the greatest D-backs relievers maybe of all time. He needs a little bit more of a track record, but he is starting to build himself a case. He had a great appearance on Tuesday, but the other three guys battling for the closer role all look fantastic. Ginkle, 2 strikeouts. Puck, 2 strikeouts. Martinez had to walk around a little bit of an issue with a leadoff walk and then an error, but showed he can get out of it. Double play, strikeout. So I actually think starting his inning off, running to a little bit of trouble, and then showing how he can get out of it was actually like a positive, effect, or was a positive outcome from the game. And so when looking at these three guys, I think we all want Justin Martinez to be the closer, right? It seems like he's being groomed to be the closer of the future. And I've done a podcast topic over the last couple months, basically detailing that Justin Martinez is 22 years old. If he's truly going to be the D-backs closer over the next few seasons, at least if you just tell me he's the D-backs closer through his arbitration years, nothing more, nothing less. We don't re-sign him in free agency. If he just right now, the closer through his arbitration, he is going to go down as the best closer in D-backs franchise history, and it's not even close. The list is very sad for all-time D-backs closers. When you look at the all-time saves leader, I don't have the exact list pulled up in front of me right now, but the number one guy only has like 100 career saves, or like right around 90. Like, it's not that high of a number at all. And Justin Martinez could put together 3, 4, 5 good seasons and be the D-backs all-time closer in terms of saves. And the fact that he's only 23 years of age, it's perfectly set up for him to go down as the best closer in D-backs franchise history. But D-backs are not going to rush into that scenario whatsoever. Even though we all believe Justin Martinez will be named the closer by opening day, the D-backs are not going to rush into that scenario. But just know, when Martinez's career is over, he will be the D-backs all-time leading closer, or all-time leading saver. Is that the all-time leader in saves? That's how you want to say it. And so we all believe he's going to be named the closer. The 8th inning guy, I'm more concerned about how the rest of the bullpen is going to be lined up, because I already have Justin Martinez penciled in as the number 9 guy. The 8th inning guy should basically be AJ Puck every single game when it's a save situation, high leverage moment, right? Because AJ Puck is that nasty. And coming over to the D-backs last year, we saw him immediately how good he can be and how dominant he is. He's right there with Justin Martinez in terms of his strikeout stuff, 14.2 strikeouts per 9. When he came over to Arizona last year, a 1.32 ERA, like, he was absolutely nasty. And so I need Martinez, triple digit stuff, off speed stuff as my closer, just dominating folks. Like when you go up to the batter's box and you see Martinez on the mound, you're scared. And when you're in the 8th inning and you see 6'7" Puck on the mound that can also throw 98, you're also scared. And so that's who I need in my back end. I need Martinez as my number 9. I need Puck as my number 8 as two guys who can really ratchet up the heat in high leverage moments, high velocity guys. Like the way baseball is going, that's who you need in the back end of your bullpen. I need Kevin Ginkel, another guy who could throw 96, 97. I need him as my 7th inning guy, my setup man to my setup man, my second go-to guy in high leverage moments. That's not named my closer. Like in terms of the power rankings, it's Martinez, it's Puck, and then it's Kevin Ginkel in terms of who I trust. Maybe I trust Puck even more, but Martinez is definitely going to be the closer over AJ Puck. But Kevin Ginkel needs to be the go-to guy in the 7th inning because, again, that's another high leverage inning. You need to get the ball to Puck. You need to get the ball to Martinez, and I want the 7, 8, 9 combination. My favorite baseball teams, or not my favorite, but I think some of the best baseball teams, specifically the best bullpens, are the ones where people know their role, and it's the ones where 7, 8, 9, you know who's coming out. Yes, there might be situations where you might need a lefty and Joe Mantiply to get an out in the 7th inning, or maybe, Puck and Ginkel have been pitching too much and it's a double play situation. So you bring Ryan Thompson out. Like there's still other ways to get other people involved in late game situations. But for the most part, if it's 3 runs or less, Dbacks are winning 7th, 8th, 9th, Ginkel, Puck, Martinez needs to be the combination. Give me Ryan Thompson as my go-to guy if I need a double play ball. Joe Mantiply is my go-to guy if I need a lefty specialist. Kendall Graveman, a perfect bridge guy in the middle of the bullpen. And then after that, the biggest question is, how are the D-backs going to allocate that long reliever role? Because you could go with someone traditional, the Dre Jameson, the Bryce Jarvis, one of their youngsters, right? Blake Walston. Like there's so many guys that could be that long reliever spot starter for you if you want it. Or you could go with one of your leftovers in the rotation with the Fots, the Ryan Nelson, if you really want to do that. So for me, I don't really care too much about like the actual closer spring training battle because I think a lot of it is just for show. I like the fact they're making each guy earn their role this spring training, but I think at the end of the day, Justin Martinez is going to win the job. So for me, I care more about how Torey Lovullo is going to utilize the rest of the bullpen. Martinez the closer, Puck is the 8th inning, Ginkel's the 7th, Thompson's go-to double play ball guy, Joe Mantiply, go-to lefty specialist, Kendall Graveman, a nice middle bridge bullpen dude, and then figure out a couple long relievers. And this bullpen is cooking. I probably still forgot somebody when naming all those relievers for the D-backs, but right now this bullpen is set up and looks like one of the best D-backs bullpens since I've taken over this podcast. And I believe next year we could have one of the best 7, 8, 9 combinations in the National League. Now I want to discuss, what if the 2024 second half D-backs continue in 2025? We'll discuss that in segment number 3.
From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. FanDuel is the app that is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. My favorite thing to do on FanDuel is the same game parlay. Whenever the Suns are playing, give me KD over on 25 points, give me Booker over on 25, and give me the Suns money line. When it hits, which is not very often, it brings a big smile to my face. And if you want a big smile on your face, just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, and we did a podcast topic yesterday detailing Corbin Carroll, Eugenio Suarez. They both had big second halves in 2024. What if it continues in 2025, right? What would it mean to the offense and the home runs and yada yada? But what if we extrapolate that? What if the whole D-backs team, at least from the lineup perspective, not the rotation of the pitching, but at least from the lineup perspective, what if all those guys continued the second half of the season that they had last year? Because if we get second half 2024 offensively from this D-backs lineup, again, that is the best offense in baseball. And yes, we did lose Christian Walker. And yes, we did lose Jock Peterson. But of the guys who really made a massive impact with Arizona, most of them are still here and not going anywhere for next season. Because you look at WRC plus of the guys who had at least 170 plate appearances in the second half of the year, at least 170 plate appearances in the second half of the year. Ketel Marte, number 1 in WRC plus. Eugenio Suarez, number 6 in WRC plus. Corbin Carroll, number 12 in WRC plus. Lourdes Gurriel, number 23 in WRC plus. And then you got Jake McCarthy, 56, and Geraldo Perdomo, 55. And that is just in the National League. But that means the D-backs last year had 5 of the top 56 players in the second half of the season in the National League. That is a loaded team. We just saw the D-backs drop. We just saw the MLB Network top 100 players right now for all of baseball, and the D-backs had 4 top 100 guys. And that was on the whole roster. In just the lineup in the National League last year, D-backs had 5 of the top 56 guys last year offensively, and those guys were cooking. And so we discussed yesterday, if you get Corbin Carroll and Eugenio, the second half that they had over the course of a full season, that's basically a 35 home run, 60 stolen base season for Corbin Carroll. It's basically a 40-plus home run season for Eugenio, where he's back to his 2018, 2019 numbers, putting up like a 900 OPS. And for the rest of the guys, it gets bonkers for this lineup if, again, you can replicate the second half that these guys had, which is hard to do. But Ketel Marte, he only played 44 games in the second half. He still had 17 home runs and was monster with a 669 slugging. Yes, he's probably not going to replicate that. But if he could do 90% of that, or if Ketel Marte can just repeat what he did last year, which again, third in MVP voting, not going to be easy. But if Ketel Marte, he's the one guy where I don't need him to replicate his second half. If he can just replicate his first half and second half, the full season he had, it'll be fine because he never, ever fell off. A lot of the D-backs lineup turned up in the second half. Ketel Marte was turned up from game 1 to game 162. So he's the one guy. You just need him to continue to do what he does entering next season. But Carroll, continue your second half. Eugenio, continue your second half. Lourdes Gurriel, this was a guy who was the MVP the first 2 weeks of the season and then went cold basically until the All-Star break, and then heated up again in the second half. A 312 average and over 800 OPS in the second half of the season. The power still not exactly there for Lourdes Gurriel, but the overall hitting ability, and he stopped striking out. Just great to see from Lourdes Gurriel. His play discipline became absolutely elite in the second half of the season. And so if you can get that guy, because the second half he had last year, again, it wouldn't be a lot of power. It would basically be like a 12 home run season for Lourdes Gurriel. If I told you Lourdes Gurriel hit 12 home runs but batted 308 and had like an 850 OPS and was like top 5 in the National League in doubles, I think you would take it. I think you would take the other counting numbers over the home runs if it meant he had like a larger overall impact on the offense. And so Gurriel, I would definitely take your second half from last year despite you not having a ton of power. Geraldo Perdomo, he batted 274, 349 OBP, and a 390 slugging. Is that insane? No, but for Geraldo Perdomo, like that's really all you need. Like just have an OPS right around that number. Good contact ability. It's mostly because of the defense. And again, he's not striking out. He's drawing a ton of walks. Was there a ton of pop or power in those numbers I just said? No, not really. But again, the WRC plus for him is so high because of the plate discipline for Geraldo Perdomo and just doing positive things, putting the ball in play, sacrifice hits. Like he just does all the dirty work offensively. And so, yes, the counting numbers might not be massive. The WRC plus is still very good because of the overall positive contributions of Perdomo. And then Jake McCarthy, 291 average, 333 OBP, and then a 413 slugging in the second half last year. He was absolutely clutch, which is the most important thing, and only a 13.7% strikeout rate. This is another guy with really, really strong plate discipline. I think that was the common theme with a lot of these D-backs players. Not a ton of them strike out. When you look at the Carrolls, the Perdomos, the Jake McCarthys, like really strong plate discipline. Lourdes Gurriel, like really strong plate discipline from this D-backs team in the second half and all season last year. And a lot of it is because of Geraldo Perdomo setting the tone at the bottom of the lineup. And so for the D-backs, if this lineup can just continue the second half that they had last year into 2025, again, we will be one of the scary offenses in the National League next season, if not the scariest. Yes, you still got the Dodgers and the Mets and the Phillies and the Braves, but D-backs are going to be right there at the top of the list for most runs scored in the NL. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Deuces.